Shalawama, Shalawama. I am Dr. Yasapa with Zion Law School. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome. Today is a live broadcast. You can call in. All right. So let me just check to make sure we have the connection. In 1 second. All right. All right, good. Good, so we're in, it's working. We can go ahead and get started. I'm Dr. Yasapa from Zion Law School. Today is a call-in show, and we're going to discuss what is the best proof, or what would have been the best proof, that the Christ figure, JC, the Christ figure, was really, truly the Son of the Most High. A, the Christ figure comes down off the cross and he punishes the people who put him up on the cross on false accusations, right? Blasphemy, so they say. Or B, the Christ figure resurrects himself from the dead. So which of the two scenarios provides the most powerful and most convincing truth that the Christ figure is really who he said he is, which is the Son of, capital G-O-D, the Father, all right? Which is most powerful? The call-in number is 530-554-9419, 554-941-9. What you're looking at on the screen here is the book 911, Ibaryath Rescue. This has all of the Ibaryath or ancient Hebrew pictographs in it. It has information, tons of information. It's complementary to our 101 Ancient Ibaryath course. So I would like everybody to buy a couple copies of this book, one for yourself and for everybody else. Let's clear it out. I think I have like 100 or 115 left, and I would like to have them all out so that I can order new. So if you can afford it, support us, support yourself, and get this book. So now, also remember, subscribe to 101 Ancient Ibaryath. This is a streaming course. You can do it at home, wherever. It is comprehensive, pack. This is what you need to return to the Most High, to help you in your quest, because it's going to help you reclaim your heritage. That's what it's all about, y'all. All right, let's go to the topic. Let me share first. Let me put this on the screen so everybody can see it. All right, so this is the topic of today's discussion. All right, that's the topic of today's discussion. Okay, that's what we're talking about today. All right, so let's give it a minute, give people a chance to come in on this platform. On this platform, I'm not able to show your comments, but I will read them. But it's better to just call in, right? Just call in, but also put comments if you want. But that's the number you can call in, and you'll be live, all right? So give me 1 second. I want to pull up our PDF. Shalawama.
Hey, Shalom, Gary.
Gary Tucker, how you doing? We're live on YouTube.
Yes, brother, I have it on my other phone, so I'm listening on YouTube.
Oh, you're listening in. Okay. Let me ask you, are you in the States? Are you in the US?
Yeah, I'm in New York.
Okay, you're in New York territory. All right, cool. So you see the topic, right?
Yep.
Okay, so in your opinion, Gary, oh, go ahead.
So no, I have. I'm listening to you, so we're ahead of the actual live stream.
Oh. So is it live? So do you have a signal?
What's that?
Do you have the signal? The live stream, is it working?
Yep.
Okay, it's okay. So you want to get into it, or you want to discuss something else?
Well, I just want to back up just a little bit from previous videos leading up to this one.
Yes.
Going back to the book, I found that the author seemed to gravitate away from the astrotheology and went more into the literal sense of what's written in the book.
Do you mean in this chapter or other chapters?
This chapter not the one we did last night.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
He seemed to get away from it, so a lot of the comments kind of didn't follow with astrotheology, but more in the connotative understanding of what we understand about the book.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you on that. But we only got through a couple pages, so I think, or at least for me, I'm going to reserve my my opinion on that until. Let me get the book real quick. I'm in the middle of packing. Where is my book? Hold on. I'm pulling up the file now. Let me show it. Let me show it.
I have it downloaded. I just don't have it printed out yet. So I'm not in my office. I will follow along with the readings, but I never printed it out.
Okay, I'm showing it on the screen right now. So let me give it a second to queue up. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. He did, and I was surprised, but we are just a few pages into the chapter. So we're in the chapter on the crucifixion. So let me pull it up, and then we can kind of scan through it to try to see what he's gonna do, how he's gonna square this.
So what I don't mind doing is I'll be like listening online, if that's all right.
Oh,
Let
yeah.
you go ahead and do what you do, and kind of like you did with the woman last week.
Yeah.
Even though she read, you asked her to comment from time to time, and I don't mind doing that because I know this is your platform.
Okay, but Gary, you know you're live on YouTube, right? People can hear you. You're in the video.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. I can give you the link if you want. And you can come in instead of being on the phone. It's up to you. It might be easier for you, or it's up to you. If you want, I can give you the link.
Because I'm not in a private setting, right. I don't want to do that and then interrupt the flow, because I'm at my home and there's going to be people in and out of the room that I'm in. So I don't want to interrupt the flow of the broadcast. If I was in my office or in a quieter setting, I would be more than happy to be on the live stream.
Okay, cool. Can you see my screen now? You see the chapter, the crucifixion of Christ?
I see it, but because it's on, I enlarged it on the other phone. Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, so that's page 209. So we're on page 2. That chapter begins on page 209. See 208. This is 209 right here.
I can follow along. Not a problem.
Okay, so this is the crucifixion of the Christ, and so we're on page. Let me give me 1 second. I want to show you. I want to highlight where we are.
Let me say shalom to whoever's listening and whoever's in the chat. Shalom, everybody.
All right, excellent. So yeah, here we are, page 212. Where's my hard copy? I'm trying to. What did I do with my hard copy? Man, I'm in the middle of packing. I'm packing my stuff, and Hold on, give me 1 second. I found my hard copy. Let me pull it out so I can tell you the specific paragraph. I want to highlight it. So give me 1 second while I find it. And then we can highlight it and go from there. But yeah, okay, so it's actually page 211. Let me highlight the author's claims real quick so everybody can see what it is we're dealing with in this live stream. So page 211. Oh, what's going on? Yeah. I don't know what's going on with the craziest things. Gary, do you see what's happening to the screen? Do you see what's happening to my screen? Yeah, I can't. Okay. So let me. His rising. So we're here. This is the topic. It says his rising. That's the Christ figure is rising from the dead afterwards. If we ourselves had seen him rise, would not have been so strong a proof to us of his truth, as his not delivering himself from death was a proof of falsehood. So the author is asking this question. Let me pull that PowerPoint back up so we can see it in plain English. So the author is saying this: if the Christ would have came down off the cross, that would have been greater proof that he's God's son. It would have been greater proof than the Christ figure resurrecting himself. And the reason why, scholars in the audience, the reason why the author is saying this, we discussed this yesterday in the presentation. The author is saying that you're either dead or you're alive. There's no coming back after death, right? And this is Gary's point. This is not astrotheology. The points that the author is making right here, it's not astrotheology. Is that correct, Gary?
That's correct.
All right. And that's what we're dealing with today, whether or not you personally think that the Christ figure coming down off of the cross would have provided more powerful and convincing evidence. Because the Christ figure, if he was resurrected, you have to wonder, well, who resurrected him? Because when you're dead, right? So was he dead or not? So now, Gary, let's take a look. So we're on page 11. Let's see how many more chapters the author, how many more pages is in this chapter.
Can I interject something?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay, did we come to a consensus based upon last night's presentation? Did we come to a consensus as far as us in our particular chat, not necessarily the author, that was actually JC on the cross and not a swap out?
We never came to that consensus, and that was, I think, if I remember correctly, I think that's why how this topic came up, whether or not we should discuss that, because the possibility that the brothers, the so-called black man, was swapped out and put on the cross takes away from the power of the, it takes away of the, I guess, I don't even know how to say it, man, but you understand what I'm saying? It makes the fact that the Christ figure was resurrected less believable because there's evidence that he was swapped out. Are you there?
Yeah. I'm here because he's obviously coming strictly from a Christian based explanation regarding his book in the overall sense. But you go into other belief system, again, I brought up Islam yesterday because that was the low-hanging fruit, where they say that due to the confusion in the garden, he escaped or hid, either escaped or hid in the gardener's shed. And that wasn't even him. In the scuffle, he kind of dipped into the gardener's shed, and that whoever that they thought it was, and they say that it's Judas Iscariot. And then you also brought up Simon. So now we had another person that could have possibly been the swap out.
Yeah, and I'm thinking because of those reasons, probably there's more. That's why the author said that if he would have gotten off of the cross, it would have been more convincing, more powerful evidence that he was the deity's son, you know. So this whole dying and being resurrected, it seems to have a lot of holes in it, you know. So
unless the chapter is going to unfold where he gets back onto the astrotheology, then we'll be having a discussion over what me personally is a fictitious physical entity.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. Well, the chapter ends on page 222, and we stopped on page 212. So we have 10 more pages to see what he's talking about. But we can peruse right now. We can peruse through the chapter and see what he's talking about. You know, just kind of like do a little scan. So let me see. Search for astrotheological terms. So let's see, page 212. We did that. Let's see. I'm on page 213 now. You can see it. No, we stopped on page 213. So we got 9 more pages in the chapter. So let's just peruse through here and see if we see any astrotheology. All right. So I'm on page 214 doing just a scan, and I don't see any astrotheology. He's still talking about Simon of Cyrene. Okay. Page 215, still no astrotheology. All right. You know, Gary, it's very interesting that he added a whole chapter on this, and then half the chapter is not astrotheology. I wonder what his rationale was to put this discussion in here, unless he felt like this is so powerful he had to put it in. You know, what's your take on that?
Yeah, because that's going to influence the responses from the participants, because we were, in previous presentations, we were able to look at the celestial movements and the correlations with zodiacs, etc. But this chapter seems to just focus on the physicality of whether he was or he wasn't, he did or he didn't. So that's going to change the whole mindset, which is fine with me. I just want to let you be aware that that may affect the audience.
It may, what's that again? It may affect what now? I wasn't able to catch that last part.
I said that it does. It's fine with me, whatever direction the chapter goes, but it may affect the audience in a way that may be a little confusing to them, because we were talking about astrotheology. We were able to type some things in with zodiacs, times of the year, the months, the moon cycles, the sun cycles, etc. But this chapter seems to just be focusing on the physical person, on whether he did or didn't, was or wasn't. So that's going to change the whole tenor of the direction of tonight's presentation, which is fine with me, but I don't know how the audience may feel about that.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. So yeah, I'm on page 216, and I don't see any astrotheology terms. Let me scroll. Let me keep going. Okay, so I just saw one. I see Atlas. Do you see the highlight? I haven't read it yet. Let me see, what else do I see? So Atlas, I think, is going to refer to something celestial. Okay, so Atlas of the mythology. All right. So let's see, Saint Andrew. Saint Andrew of the Christian fable signifies the strong one, but who was no more a real person is the Saint Andrew. So I think it's getting back to astrotheology on page 216 or 217. Let's continue. Okay. Let me see. Yeah, you see here where the first word on page 217 is sun. Okay, so Saint Andrew received the congregation. That is when the sun, S-U-N, personified as Saint Andrew, enters into the constellation or congregation of stars called Libra. So he's somehow or another is picking back up. And I see crucified here. Hold on. Do you see crucified there? I don't know the relationship yet. And then we see Michaelmas Day. So I guess that's going to be Christmas, 29th of September, or whatever Michaelmas Day is, 29th of September. Let me highlight it here. So here's another reference to astrotheology. Also the autumn foot. If you're able to see that, the autumn foot of the great solar arc.
Yeah. I can see it. It looks like he might have just deviated just a little bit, but he looks like he might be going back into the flow of astrotheology.
Yeah, and here he's saying the 4 genii or saints, respective months, 4 seasons of the year: spring, summer, autumn, winter. Peter is spring. So Peter is spring. And then he goes on here, Andrew is autumn, the sun, the order of nature, the equator. So yeah, so I guess, man, they're just gonna have to be patient and follow along. But so scholars in the audience, Gary is making a very real point. Don't take this as being an attack on your belief system if you are following the Gospels. Remember, we're reading a book, and this book is a compilation of sermons. So we're not presenting something to go against what you believe. It's just in the book, and we're going to read through it, and we're going to see how the author connects this back to astrotheology. So just be patient, scholars in the audience, and we'll get back to it. So yeah, on page 218, he's also talking about the Autumn Crucifixion. Let's see, something happening in September, the balance of September, the Autumn Crucifixion. So yeah, also more about the seasons on 219, the Feast of Easter. Oh, I think I know what he's getting at, man. You know what he's getting at? I think he's going to connect the idea that if the Christ figure never died, and all of, they have Passover, what they have, the holidays that they have in springtime, acknowledging the Christ, either his resurrection or, like they'll reenact the Last Supper, all of that stuff. I think he's going to connect those events to the astrotheology. And he's going to say, well, if the Christ figure never died, then these events are clearly connected to worship of the stars, or something like that, or the movement of the celestial bodies, or something like that. But I don't know, Let me see. Yeah, you see here where he's talking about the vernal crucifixion. So if there was never a Christ figure who was crucified, then this vernal crucifixion, the JW religion, they call it the memorial, where they recognize the Christ, the Last Supper. So that event never happened. So what are these celebrations about? The author, I think, is going to say it is clearly astrotheology, because there is no Christ figure who ever died. I think that's what he's going to. As a matter of fact, let me read this. This sentence here, it says, where the highlight is, it says, and the Christ of spring crucifixion is celebrated because after the Passover, he ascends into heaven, and we look forward to the joyful summer. But the Christ of the autumn Passover descends into hell, and we must prepare for the gloomy winter. I think that's what he's getting at. Actually, this is an interesting paragraph. I want to read this. That it is the vernal crucifixion, or crossing of the equator by the sun, S-U-N, when he enters the sign of Aries, the ram, as he does on the 21st of March, and no crucifixion of any man, nor any, let me repeat that. And no crucifixion of any man, nor any even that ever happened upon earth, that was the subject of the fast of Good Friday and the feast of Easter that follows it, is demonstrated in the historical fact that this fast and feast have been religiously observed in the spring of the year, in every country of the world, and in every era of time, of which a record of any sort has descended to our own, and observed too, with the very same ceremonies, to the very same significancy, and even with the very same words. And the Christ of the spring crucifixion is celebrated because after Passover, he ascends into heaven. And we look forward to the joyful summer. But the Christ of the autumn Passover descends into hell, and we must prepare for the gloomy winter. So what the author is, the author's logic is this. For millennia before the Christ figure was ever allegedly to be born, people were celebrating the Passover, the memorial, right? These events, the summer, in the spring. They've been doing it all the time. But the Christ figure, this allegorical story, just usurped it and put the Christ figure in there in a human form. But that was happening way before him, right? So I think that's what the author is showing. No Christ figure ever lived according to the author. They just made up a story, threw him in there, but their story had a problem because that Christ figure was never crucified anyway. And the author is saying, here's the evidence. Here's the mistakes they made when they wrote the story. Or maybe it has some Masonic meaning in the way they wrote the story, that only their members are taught. You know what I mean, Gary?
Yeah, putting the figure into this religious system clearly follows the more ancient systems, i.e. The Babylonians, the Mesopotamians, so on and so forth. They all had similar astrology-based explanations of things, and I think that Christianity just did their take on previous concepts, just changed names.
Yeah, I agree with you, because earlier in the book, the author talks about the dark priesthood, and he makes the point that the dark priesthood took natural phenomena or for example, those indicators of, when springtime was going to show, when fall would show, the weather, the lightning, and these dark priests or the dark priesthood, these renegade priests, put themselves in the position of being a mediator between the common people and the natural phenomena, let's say thunder. And they called that thunder a deity and gave him a personality and attributes. So if you want, let's say, crops, or you want a good harvest, you need rain. So you need to go to the priest, so the priest can intercede for you with the deity, let's say Thor or Apollo. But these were natural phenomena. And I think to piggyback on what you're saying, if I understand you correctly, is that these Jewish, so-called Jewish religious leaders, who I'm going to just say the dark priesthood, made this story up about the Christ figure. And they just inserted the Christ figure in as a deity. That's what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree with you 100%. It looks like that's what happened. And the author is showing, from the author's point of view, how ridiculous the story is, how unbelievable it is, because when you look at the 9 points of evidence that the author presented, from the author's point of view, it's clearly not the Christ figure who was hung up on that cross. So when you take that problem with the allegorical story, and then you match it or you add it to the evidence of the celestial bodies, the vernal equinox, so on and so forth, these things were happening, eons before the Christ figure story was ever made. So maybe that's why the author brought it up, because it's ridiculous if you know the history, that these celebrations were happening before there was any religious ceremony associated with them. So first, our ancestors recognized them and studied them. Nobody worshiped them. But then the dark priesthood came along, and like you said, they made religions out of them. And then later on, the allegorical story of the Christ figure was added, right? And they made mistakes in their story, or there's some Masonic interpretation of it. And if you know the history, then you can see that these celebrations were happening, and they just threw the Christ figure right in the middle of something that was already happening. Do I understand you correctly?
That's correct. Well, you hit me right on the head.
Okay, excellent. Let's see what's happening on the next page, man. If you got to go, let me know, man. You got me curious now. I want to.
No, I'm here. I just can't see the chat, so I wish I could see the comments. The way I'm gonna try to get to the comment. I want to just make sure, but I can't get to the comments the way my setup is.
Oh, okay. So you.
But I'm here for a little while.
Okay. Let me. What page am I on? So let me just. I'm curious, man. My curiosity got the best of me. So we're on page 118, 119. Let's continue scrolling down, see if we see anything else interesting. All right, so we just read that. So let's scroll down. We can give the scholars in the audience something to look forward to. Okay, page 220 talks about the Jewish ceremony, consisted essentially in eating their lamb. The Christian ceremony in eating the flesh and drinking the blood of the lamb of the deity, so on and so forth. So he's getting into the festival of Easter. So I'm assuming he's going to first talk about the science of the celestial movement of Easter before it was ever deified. And then he's going to talk about the mythology of it. I'm learning his pattern. And then he's going to show the connection of the mythology to the gospel story. That's what's going to happen here. So scholars, those of y'all who who are interested in that, be sure to come back tomorrow or whenever we get to this, because the author, he goes into detail when he does his astrotheology thing. So yeah, he's talking about the Passover lamb here on this topic, the Vernal Crucifixion. He's going to talk about what the blood means. Let's see, what else is he talking about? I see something about preach the acceptable year. I know what that is. The edit PDF tool. Okay, let me close that out. Hold on. So yeah, the acceptable year is astrotheological. The capital LORD of host is astrotheological. So yeah, he's going in detail about what the lamb is, the Virgin of August. So that's Virgo, I believe. Let's see. Okay. Let me scroll down a little bit more, give everybody something to look forward to. Man, I'm glad you brought this to my attention. I really, really am. Because if you're thinking it, other people were thinking it who know the topic. So let's see.
And I think another thing to consider, and it's just dawned on me, is that they made a whole life scenario around this person. But when you think about it, everything, astronomically speaking, for all intents and purposes, happens within one calendar year. Mm-hmm. So it seems like they're telling the same events, just using different aspects of this supposed figure's life. So they seem to be repeating. Another way to look at them, just saying, is to look at it the same thing happening over and over and over again. You got spring, summer, fall, winter, over and over and over again. They're just adding different characters to play out this particular character's life.
That's a good point. That's a real good point.
The sun dies every year, every single year.
Yeah, that's
it rises every year.
Yeah. You know what, man? I don't know if this has something to do with what you're talking about, but tell me what you think. I just happened, while you're talking, I happen to be on page 217. And it says here, I didn't read it, but it just caught my attention. It says, and as the sun, S-U-N, in the order of nature, crosses the equator twice every year, so you will find in your New Testament allegory that there are actually two crucifixions, and Christ is said to be crucified twice. That is, once upon Mount Calvary in the place of a skull, as if to say, brains were of no use to that skull that is so thick as not to find out the meaning of the allegory. This guy, he's really sarcastic, funny though. And here you see, most literally, is the place of a skull mount. The point I'm trying to get at, you said things are happening twice or repeatedly, but different stories. And this is what the author is saying. So it happened on Calvary, and the head of the great monster Cetus, which the crucified lamb of capital G-O-D is crushing beneath his feet. And once he was crucified in Egypt, where also our capital L-O-R-D was crucified. That's Revelation 11:8. And after which the Autumn Crucifixion. Oh, I don't know if he's talking about this celestial constellation Cetus was crucified, or if the Christ figure. But anyway, he said, he goes on, and after which Autumn Crucifixion, he descended into hell under the custody of Michael the Archangel. And then he goes on and on. So, I mean, we have to flesh that out when we get there. But yeah, I just read that because you were talking about things repeating and being told same story told or same event told, but a different story, you know?
Correct. And that's for 33 years, he allegedly walked the earth. They got to keep coming up with different scenarios, but they're still the same months throughout the year. So each aspect of the existence of the so-called figure, they're just telling another seasonal story. That's what I'm saying.
Right. So each zodiac has its own characteristics and attributes, and then so there's a new story when you get into a new zodiac and then a new season, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. It keeps repeating itself.
Yeah, you know, man, I had
obviously until his death, but whatever.
Yeah, I had a conversation with
it goes on for eternity.
Yeah, this might be off the topic, but I had a conversation with a friend of mine today, and she was talking about, a lot of people are talking about time, that something's happening with the time and there's no longer going to be a spring forward and a fall back. And it's connected somehow to religion or their Christian, their Hebrew Israelite Christian doctrine. Are you familiar with this?
I know that there's been conversations to eliminate the daylight savings time for sure, to spring forward and fall back.
Yeah, somehow.
There's definitely been talks to make that a standard one time for everybody.
Yeah, somehow that's being connected to Hebrew Israelite doctrine. And when she told me about that, the first thing that came to my mind was, if I remember correctly, that the spring forward, fall backward was implemented during the war. I think it was World War II, to increase production. If I remember correctly, I haven't checked it, but that's my memory.
Yeah, that was in the 40s when they did that.
Yeah. So man, I was thinking, Gary, how are they connecting this to religion? And then she told me they would seek to change times and seasons. And I was trying to put that together, and it really didn't make sense to me.
I don't know how it connects to religion, because the story they told population was it was to help the school children to not be in the dark so often, because you would go to school and it was dark, and then you would come home when it was dark. So they claimed that was the reason why they originally did it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I don't ever accept the apparent. So if there is a religious tie-in, I would be surprised. I just don't know what that would be.
Yeah, well, my friend said it's like the trending talk amongst the Hebrew Israelites. And when I told her that my understanding is that it happened during the war, World War II, it had to do with production. Now, you're saying it had to do with education, childhood education. I just don't see how they're connecting that. But it's very interesting. It's very interesting because when you deal with astronomy, the seasons don't change. I mean, mechanically they don't change, or nature does not change. So the only thing you can do is account for time differently, right? And that's the way I understand those verses, right? They would account for time differently. But that's more about, I think, calendars, right? But or changing the chronology of history.
You start tinkering with time, if that's what they're going to do. Well, they've been tinkering with time, but anytime you're going to try to do something on a mass scale, I would have to expect that there's a bigger picture, a bigger goal or agenda with doing this. Right.
It's going to be to disorient people in time and space. So, for example, you can change the calendar. by changing the number of years, right, that you count as 1 year, or coming up with a whole different unit of accounting for time. You can turn the maps upside down, right? You can move cities. You can do all of these type of things to disorient people. But I don't know, man, I don't know. So, but that's supposed to be the trending talk right now amongst the Hebrew Israelites, this whole issue of time and springing forward and springing back. And I thought to myself, wow, that's kind of sad.
Well, I don't think it has any, I don't know if they have that much power. I think this has already been discussed as far as governments are concerned, the government itself. I never heard a particular religious sect having this much influence while we're talking about it. So this is what we want to get done. I heard this already, that our government was looking to possibly do away with it.
Well, what they're saying is that because the government is looking to do away with it, it's fulfilling some prophecy. That's what they're saying. But you know, I don't know. I don't know. You know, it's a little bit sad to me that that's where their knowledge base is. It's just a total lack of understanding of history. But anyway, let's get back to the lesson. Let me pull this up. So let me put this in presentation mode. All right. So Gary, I'd like to ask you a question. Hold on. If you're able to answer.
Yes, sir.
Can you give us your take on the question or the topic for tonight? In your opinion, the most powerful proof that Christ is the Son of God is A, Christ coming down off of the cross, or B, Christ resurrecting himself, or C, none of the above, and of course, why?
Let me read it. Yeah, I'm looking at it.
All right.
Well, because it's S-O-N, it's going to be, my choice is C. But if you put S-U-N, then I'm going to take both A and B.
Can you explain your rationale, please?
Because S-O-N is a physical entity.
Yeah.
And there is no way, nobody is ever going to convince me, and I'm not being stubborn.
Yeah.
I've done thorough research, and I've spoken to a lot of people to make sure that what I'm saying now is very clear and direct. There is no way that this person ever walked this earth in physical form. No way possible.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't want to put you on the spot.
And one way I can, I'm sorry to interject, but one way I can back that up is one of the earlier videos you did regarding Devil's Pulpit.
Mm-hmm.
I had typed in that a lot of the accounts attributed to JC were actually military conquests and battles with General Titus, assuming General Titus was an actual person as well.
Yeah.
So there are locations, names, quotes that they give to one person when they were actually actual happenings and experiences from another person.
Right. So you're referring to typology?
I'm sorry?
You're referring to typology, the writing style called typology or referred to as typology?
No. Referring to actual historical accounts. So, with the assumption that the actual military people that are mentioned in the NT actually existed, they are written in historical history books, assuming that they were actual physical beings as well.
Okay.
What I'm saying is, when it comes to JC, a lot of what they attribute to him were actually military escapades of General Titus, who was one of the great Roman generals in their histories.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I remember putting in the chat, as far as the fishers of men, they attribute that to JC. However, according to history books, they were battling the Jews of the day, and the Jews were trying to get away in boats, but the Roman military had larger, faster boats, and then they caught them out at sea, and that was fishing of men.
Okay.
In actual history, in terms of how it's written in history books versus, this guy making him so great. He was the fisher of men. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, yeah.
That's it.
Okay, all right. Well, let me see. Let me check to see if there are any comments. Let me see. Give me 1 second. Let me check. So anyone, if you want to call in, you're more than welcome to call in and make a comment. Let me read some of these comments. Let's see. Roderick's point of view says, good evening. King Michael writes, present. Roderick's point of view writes, in America, I remember growing up, we used to say when it rained and the sun was shining, the devil was beating his wife. And so what we've done was we took a sign in the heavens and humanized it. Excellent point, anthropomorphism. There's another term too, personification, yes. Roderick's point of view continues, the Passover had nothing to do with Christ. They were doing this as a memorial to what happened in Egypt. Good point. Darrell-El says, 1918 is daylight savings time, first use. Thanks, Darrell-El. Thanks for putting that out there. I don't know for the life of me how people are connecting this to prophecy. I don't get it, because this is modern stuff, right? 1918, that's modern. You know? But anyway, Jerice says, hello everyone, Shalom, Jerice. Roderick's point of view writes, when it comes to daylight savings time, I heard the school thing about the children being out in the dark, but I also heard it was made so that the slaves could work longer hours. That seems very reasonable. Barbara says, Shalom, Barbara. I was told that same thing, Rodney, about the devil beating his wife. Darrell-El writes, 1908, daylight savings time was repealed and then reinstituted during World War II. Thanks, Darrell-El, for putting that out. So what year, Darrell-El, do you have any idea when daylight savings, or did he write that already? Daylight savings. Okay, so Darrell-El, you wrote 1918 is daylight savings first time in use. And then you write 1908 daylight savings time as repealed and then reinstituted during the war. So Darrell-El, I think the dates, could you clarify the dates, please? Because 1918 is after 1908. All right, Roderick's point of view writes, when you look at it, we add a day to the calendar year every 4 years. and I don't know about anybody else, but to me, somewhere down the line, things are going to get off. Yeah, they correct, if I remember correctly, they correct for that with the leap year. Okay, so I see a Darrell-El. Darrell-El writes, I meant 1918, not 1908. Okay, Barbara writes, wordplay, S-U-N and S-O-N. All sun worship. The sun was canceled. Let me repeat that. The sun was called the Most High at noon when it was at the highest in the sky. Excellent point, Barbara, according to Jordan Maxwell. Excellent point. All right, so we covered all of the comments. So I guess we need to take some more calls, because let me show the text again. And then we'll take some more calls. I think it was page 211, right? Yeah, 211. Let me pull that paragraph up. But say it again.
Do you mind if I add value to a comment that's in the chat?
Oh, yeah, certainly. Go ahead. Go right ahead. Sure.
Okay. We don't have time on this at this point in time, but Roderick's point of view is definitely on point, where he said that things are going to get off. They are already off. They've been off. So without going into too much detail, we're roughly 450 to 500 years off. So I just want to say that.
Oh, yeah. And you know where that's noted? That's actually documented history. If you look at the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, it'll give you, go ahead, Gary.
No, that's the live broadcast here in the background. That's not me.
Oh, okay. So if you all look at the Treaty of Peace and Friendship of 1836, what you're gonna find is the date is about, I don't know if it's 480 something or almost 500 years off, different from the date that was written on the treaty in English. So now whether that's the whole story or not, I don't know, but it is documented that several hundred years have been added to the time. Okay, and it's a treaty. Okay, and treaties are the supreme law of the land, so it's documented. Nobody can question it. Y'all go look it up. The Treaty of Peace and Friendship between the Moroccan Empire and the United States of North America. Go check it out. The Library of Congress. You can get it. Okay, so y'all should be able to see. Let me show my screen. Let me show my screen so everybody can get reoriented. So this is page 211 of the Devil's Pulpit. This paragraph here is what we are discussing. I'm going to read it again. It says, his rising from the dead afterwards, if we ourselves had seen him rise, would not have been so strong a proof to us of his truth. Right? In other words, the author is saying him being resurrected is not strong proof. Okay, so comparatively, as if we, let me repeat that, as he not delivering himself from death, right? Because he could have easily, did a trick, right? Was a proof of his falsehood. So the author is saying, in my opinion, that had he come off the cross, that would have been a greater proof than him claiming to be resurrected, because that is questionable and it goes against common sense. So that's what the call-in show is about, y'all. So is anyone ready to call in and give us your take on this? Roderick's point of view. Anybody gonna call in? Anybody gonna call in, or is everybody gonna be shy? Let's see. If you want to call in, put a 1 in the chat. Let me show the number. Okay, so the call-in number is on the screen. 530-554-9419. 530-554-9419. Okay, Darrell-El wants to call in. Darrell-El, the number is 530-554-9419. So, Gary.
Yes.
Let's end the call so that Darrell, and then when Darrell is finished, you can call back in so we can have the callers call in.
I appreciate you allowing me on your platform. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the patience of the people in the chat. Thank you very much.
Okay, call back in too, man. I appreciate you calling in. It's good to talk to you too. Islam Shalawama. Shalawama, Darrell-El.
Greetings, shalom.
Greetings, greetings. Good to talk to you, man.
You too.
Hey, and thanks for that info you gave me earlier today.
Oh, no problem. I do what I do. You know, that's what the Father put on my heart to do. Is just I got the time to research, so that's what He made me a massive researcher.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. So, what's your take on this? Go ahead.
Well, I think you mentioned it once the other day. I'm not sure. What needs to be added to the? I personally think the resurrection would be more, than homecoming, because the resurrection was supposed to be the pinnacle. But we had the example of Lazarus. So since Lazarus had such a crowd to be able to view this, why wasn't his? Since it was supposed to carry more weight, and it's supposed to be more important than what Lazarus did. So why wasn't his being seen by multitudes of people to be able to verify the veracity of the claim more?
Right. And the interesting thing too with what you're saying is that why isn't there a huge historical record of Lazarus' resurrection?
Right. Well, even in the account, they said it was, it was a lot of people, but outside of just the scriptural account, there's not very much. But even if you still go by the biblical, the scriptural account, you would think that you would have had more people to be able to verify that you actually rose, because your rising was supposed to be more important than Lazarus. And Lazarus had a crowd, and you didn't have one.
That's an excellent point. And also, I think one of the problems that confuse people is they think that the further you go back in time, the less sophisticated and the less technological the people were. But in my point of view, it's the exact opposite. They were more advanced and had better technology than we have today. You can verify that just by the level of knowledge that they have and their building projects, right?
Right.
So if that's
I definitely say they had more of an attention span, better attention span.
Yeah. So if that's the case, if that's the case, why isn't there a record? Because the people would have been sophisticated. It would have passed down either through oral tradition outside of Christianity, or it would have been passed through, let's say, medical literature, so on and so forth. We would have seen some record of it, because it's not like they were Stone Age people, right? They're ignorant, wouldn't have kept a record. I don't buy into that. In my opinion, people who talk like that, they have to, in order to agree with and promote evolution. You know what I mean?
Right.
But if they're technologically,
that's just like when people don't realize that you can't march 50,000 man army across the desert where you don't have water, you don't have food, and even if you have that, you have to have a contingency of extra support to be able to take care of them. You have to have people to take care of the horses. You have people to take care of the people when they get hurt. You have to have such a large contingency of people just to support that type of force in any type of armed conflict. So it doesn't make sense. I don't see how people don't realize it doesn't make sense for me to say that, okay, I went for my brag and I started a war in Egypt over 1,000 miles away. That doesn't make any sense, people.
But
that's not logical.
But
I was in the military. It's even hard. It's hard for a mechanized military to have a supply line over 1,000 miles long and to keep it intact. So, being that those people they didn't have mechanized machinery, so you're only looking at horses and boats and walking. So you cannot be able to sustain a force to be able to wage a war thousands of miles away like that. That just doesn't make sense. And, for people to believe in a lot, like you say, a lot of this stuff is overhyped, and it doesn't make sense when you really look at the actual verse and what it would take to really do something like that.
If Lazarus and the Christ figure would have been resurrected, there would have been all types of scientific minds there wanting to study and examine him. It would have been all types of research. For example, in Kemet, Dr. Ben and others have shown these so-called medical research papers, family planning, different surgical procedures, all of this stuff that's been preserved and found and translated. So do you mean to tell me, I'm talking to the believers, do you mean to tell me something as profound and as incredible and as amazing as somebody coming back to life, something that had never happened? I'm not talking about in the Bible. I'm talking about from other cultures that had never happened before. Remember, this is Rome, y'all. This is Rome, cosmopolitan Rome. And nobody's going to come study it. Nobody's going to say, wow, how did the Romans aren't going to say, how can we make money off of this? You see what I'm trying to say, Darrell-El?
Yeah, that's like, lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, this guy was just resurrected. You mean we can save our money with attacking countries, and we can learn this science that this guy just did, put it in a bottle, and now we can start selling resurrections or something like that. Y'all, I'm being facetious, but y'all know what I'm saying, right? They would have studied it to try to get commerce from it, huh?
That's just like what I sent you about the Jack in the Box. That's the guy that puts the little swindling articles and sells it to you. slick guy that used to in the old days he had the little medical wagon, and he would give you fake stuff to heal your ailments that really didn't work.
Yeah, it just would have been, it would have had such a huge impact. I mean, just look at even something as simple as the internet, which is really nothing but a bunch of computers connected together. Look how profoundly it has changed the world. Imagine a resurrection of somebody who was dead coming back to life. So for example, right now they have the cryo, what do they call it when they freeze people? To try to preserve them so that when cryo something. That's that's big business now. And there's not even any science remotely suggestive of how to bring these people back to life. Only that, they're able to preserve the body. But the other half, which is bringing them back, nobody knows. But there's a whole industry of this now. So just imagine if the Christ figure was resurrected, or even if Lazarus was resurrected, the amount of energy and effort and study that would have been put behind that, whether they liked it or not. But anyway, that's just what I'm thinking, along those lines. But yeah. Hey, Darrell-El, can I put you on the spot intellectually?
Sure.
Okay, so I want to do a demonstration for people, and I'm sure you can do it. So for each one, let's say number A, letter A, Christ is coming down off the cross. Do you agree with this? Well, Christ coming down off the cross, I think you said, is not as convincing evidence, right?
I don't find that that's only because that we've been taught that the pinnacle was the resurrection and not so much everything else that took place beforehand.
Yeah, so here's my put you on the spot question. Can you make an argument, a demonstration for the scholars in the audience of how to argue this point, even though you disagree with it, but argue it in the affirmative? Argue it that let's say you're paid to make the case, even though you don't agree with it, but you're going to make the case that the Christ figure coming down off of the cross is more powerful evidence than him being resurrected from the dead. Are you willing to do that as a demonstration?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. I can answer that one real easy.
All right.
The church fathers said it happened, so it must be true.
Okay.
They're smarter than we are today. They were more central to the event in the time period than we are. So they would have access to information that we probably don't have access to. So that if the church fathers said it happened, it must have happened.
That's a good point. That's a good point. So scholars in the audience, do y'all see how Darrell-El utilized historical information in the chronology or in the time frame that the event happened, and he used significant people who would know the topic better than anybody else? So that is a good way to approach using your analytical mind, using science that you just saw Darrell-El demonstrate. So when you think in these terms, make your thinking limited, as Darrell-El did, to the history, the linguistics, and history in the topic of astrotheology would be the church fathers, writings, right? It would be the relevant mythology. And then the other point that, that you would need to think narrowly on is astrotheology, or the mechanics of how the constellations work. But never forget, the author has pointed out that even astronomy was made up according to the author, right? The author also said that one of the keys to understanding astrotheology is learning which stars to connect the dots to create each of the zodiacs and the constellations. But he, according to the author, he said that the priest made up all of the zodiacs, all of the constellations, and the priest gave each constellation its own characteristics and its own attributes. So now, according to the author, astrotheology in that context is nothing more than religion. Okay? That is not to say that the stars or the celestial wilderness, if you will, does not allow us. Oh, go ahead, Darrell-El.
If I could just add this one caveat that I think will benefit everybody. The father has dealt with me on this, and don't be a lazy reader. If you're ever reading anything, it should speak back to you. It should encourage you to search further in what you're reading. Don't be a lazy reader. If you don't know a term, look it up. Don't be a lazy reader. And especially etymology. Get a hold of that. That saves you so much. Well, let me say it this way. That allows you with so much truth. Once you find out what words really mean, and you see the word craft that they put into trying to deceive you with the connotative meanings instead of the denotative meanings, that just unveils so much truth to you that I would say that's the most, because actually etymology means truth. So if etymology means truth, and we're supposed to be on a effort, you need to know etymology, because that unlocks so much truth, and you will see yourself not falling for a lot of con jobs, slow jobs, that people use this language inappropriately, giving you the modern dictionary terms that the actual word is based upon the prefix and suffix. When you get away from the prefix and suffix of a word, and they make up a meaning to try to con you that, oh, this means that now, this is modern, that doesn't change the original intent and meaning of the word, because you never created it in the first place. But that's all I'm going to add on that.
Okay, thanks. I want to plug the 101 Ancient Ibaryath course, since you brought up etymology. Scholars in the audience, this course is going to teach you the concepts of culture being embedded in language, grammar, parts of speech, Ibaryath word studies or Hebrew word studies, and a whole lot more. There's no contract with this. It's basically free. $1 for 1 day trial, $10 a month to subscribe. There's no religion in here, y'all. This is etymology, Ibaryath, not biblical Hebrew, not modern Hebrew. So invest in yourself and your family and go ahead and subscribe now. Also come to our Saturday class. It's at 10 a.m. now. 10 a.m. It's a live class. It's online. The links for both of these are in the description area. So I can attest or testify to what Darrell-El just told you. If you don't know etymology, you are going to be taken advantage of. And the worst part is that you won't even know it. You'll be getting beat up and abused with words and not even notice. But worse than that, you won't have a way out for yourself, right? The way out is the way you got in. So the way out is to abandon the connotative linguistics that you've been using. Return to the Most High by learning the Most High's instructions. And in learning the Most High's instructions, you must return to your heritage. That's Exodus chapter 20, verse 12, right? You must honor your foremothers and forefathers by keeping the Most High's commandments, following his instructions, which are at their essence natural law. You must live according to your ancestors. That includes not only culture, the way the clothes you wear, wearing a head covering, or a fez, or whatever your culture might be, but it includes the language. It includes the language, and to learn the language, you must learn linguistics and etymology. You'll only be helping yourself. But anyway, let me get off of that soapbox. So Darrell-El, I'm trying to think if there's anything I can ask you before you go, man, so that you can give it to the. You have anything else you want to say to the audience as a word of encouragement in terms of how to develop their research skills, how to develop their character, self-discipline, and all the other things that people need? And I'm not talking about new people. I'm talking about everybody. I'm talking about everybody. I'm talking to the scholars in the audience now. Whether you've been in this knowledge for 20 years or for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, you have anything, Darrell, that you can say to people to help them?
Yeah, I would say always look within. You know, even if you want to believe in the New Testament, I have no problem with it. That, you know, it had some good sayings. I don't subscribe 100% to it, but it had some good sayings, and it got some good stuff that's in there that I can say it sounds good and it's good to use. As long as it's not contradicting the Torah. So listen to that voice. Stop trying to search for people to give you the answers. The answers are within you, because even in the New Testament it says the kingdom is within you. Everything you need is already within you. Stop looking for somebody to make you feel fulfilled. You have to feel fulfillment within yourself. You have to listen because the voice talks. You don't never listen. You sometimes don't listen to it and drown it out, you know, by all these distractions of TV and, you know, all these other little, you know, things in society that distract us so easily. But just listen. Just be quiet sometimes and just listen. And follow what the voice tells you to. It tells you to do certain things, do it. You know, it's not a crazy voice. Everybody knows the soft voice. Everybody sees it. Everybody knows it. Now, you gotta be obedient to it. That's the difference. Be obedient.
Okay.
And that's pretty much.
Anything about developing research skills that you're willing to share? In addition to what you said, or?
As far as research skills, like I said, if you basically, start really nailing down etymology, you know, they have several books It's one book that I can suggest that is an excellent book. As far as etymology is concerned, it's really easy read. Me and my wife is actually still reading it, unfortunately. I thought we would be finished by now, but it's an excellent book nevertheless. And it's called Decipher the English Code. And it's by the author is named, the author name is Joseph Oroneski. Deciphering the English Code. And he basically goes through you to show you that language goes back a long time. He's saying that it's basically developed. It developed from us not speaking to speaking. So at one point we didn't communicate a lot with language by talking. We had body language, and you'll show you that a lot of the term and the sounds that we use came from actual physical things that we did with our bodies. And when you go through it, so much of it makes so much sense what he's saying that you can't help but agree with it because it's common sense. You know, like he said, the snake sound. Because when you see a snake, you hear it. So that's where that sound came from. Because you heard the snake when it moves around and goes. So that's where that came from. So it makes sense. You know, it's not stuff that, you know, out of the realm of like you say. I hear you say it's nature. We have to realize that things in nature is what's natural. You know, so we have to identify those things, and when they sound right to your ruach, you know that they're right because they make sense. Because we know when things make sense to us, it sounds right within us. Because, you know, it feels right. It's like putting on a nice pair of shoes that's not too tight. They just fit just right. You know, that's right.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Darrell-El. I appreciate it, man, for sharing that knowledge. You know, I'm very happy and thankful that you were willing to do that for us, for the scholars in the audience here. All right, so let's see. Do we have any more? Let me check the comments, man. Give me 1 second. Let me see. This is the first call-in show. Oh, cryogenics. That's what it's called. Sealy 15 says cryogenics. Yeah, there's a huge market for cryogenics. Yeah, Roger's point of view put 1. Well, my question is, do we even know these significant people even exist? That is an excellent point. You know, that's why I give these topics about history. I approach them with a grain of salt. Even a lot of the sciences, I approach it with a grain of salt because of the character of the people who are running these institutions and their history. Their character is borne out in their history. So what I'm trying to say is you cannot trust these people, right? They'll make some stuff up in a minute. The deep sense of insecurity, the deep desire to control everything has, they've demonstrated that they've been willing to make stuff up, even in science, right? So if they've done it in science, of course, in the physical sciences, of course, they're going to do it in the history, right? So on and so forth, because they are obsessed with power and control because of their deep-seated sense of insecurity and being unworthy, and they know they stole what they have. So they've got to connive. I'm talking about in their own mind, they've got to connive to keep it, right? And their nature is lower self. So whenever I look at science, the hard sciences or the soft sciences, I approach it with a grain of salt because I know the character of these people. And everybody remember that these institutions, universities, institutions who are, for example, licensing or accreditation institutions, right? They are there to maintain the status quo. And the status quo is the story that they want you to know, the story that they told, right? That's what they're there for. Okay, so if something is peer reviewed, that means that if it's outside of the story that they want told, you're not going to get the peer review. You're basically screwed, right? Or your career is going to be destroyed, right? So they force you to produce literature that's consistent with and that supports the status quo. But anyway, that's I guess a side point. All right, so let's see. Darrell-El writes, geography locations made up. Let me see. All right. All right. So do we have any other callers? The call-in number is 530-554-9419. The question is, what proof would have been most powerful? What event would have been the most powerful proof that the Christ figure was really God's son, S-O-N? A, Christ coming down off of the cross. B, Christ resurrecting himself. Or C, none of the above. Call-in number is 530-554-9419. Is anybody going to take us up and call in? Who has the courage? Who has the courage? 530-554-9419. The topic is, in your opinion, the most powerful proof that Christ is the son of capital G-O-D is A, Christ coming down off of the cross. B, Christ resurrecting himself. C, none of the above. Anybody want to call in and add to the discussion? Give us your opinion. Let's see. So where do we stand, y'all? So I want to say thank you to Darrell-El for calling in, sharing all of that with us. Also for Gary, thank you, Gary, for sharing your knowledge on the topic, being generous with it. I appreciate that very much, very, very much. And for the scholars in the audience too, please keep in mind that a lot of people will not share knowledge with you. A lot of people won't share knowledge with you. Okay, so when people are willing to share, it really should be appreciated. I'm not saying you don't appreciate it, but I'm saying that it's a big deal when somebody is willing to share knowledge with you. Okay, so much respect for everybody who's willing to put their knowledge, questions, comments into the comment section. But today, since this is a call-in show, especially if you're willing to call in and share your knowledge, but also support what we're doing here with this call-in show. So let's see, Roderick's point of view writes, okay, I think I already read that. Okay, Darrell-El says the institutions promoted owning other humans. All right, yeah. Sealy 15, call in if you got a phone. Call in 530-554-9419 and let us know why you say letter C. Letter C is none of the above. Call in and let the world know why you picked letter C. All right, y'all, give me 1 second. What we got going on here? All right, so I guess everybody else is shy. I guess y'all shy. Sealy 15, you are free to call in 530-554-9419. If nobody calls in, we're gonna end the show. Otherwise, if y'all want to keep it going, you have to call in because this is a show, a call-in show. So, you know, it's not, all right. Shalawama, shalawama. I'm good. I'm good. Give me 1 second. Let me figure this out. Something's going on with my phone. Wow. Can you hear me? There we go. Can you hear me?
Me. Yes.
Yeah. This is Roderick's point of view.
Yeah.
Okay. Shalawama, thanks for calling in.
No problem. Well, the question.
Yeah, you got the floor. You got the floor.
Well, I'm working and I'm not looking at the screen. So give me the first question so that I can give you, I guess, my point of view.
Okay. Okay, so in your point of view, the most powerful proof that Christ is the Son of God is A, Christ coming down off of the cross, B, Christ resurrecting himself, C, none of the above.
That's a really, really tough question.
Yeah.
I would think that him coming off the cross would have scared the Romans for one, but they know they beat him all night. This is what truly happened. And then they would probably say, this man must be something, because we beat him all night, and here he is. He's on here, we stabbed him, and he's going to come down off of the cross.
Right.
So that would have some type of powerful effect on those that were there with him.
Hey, Roger, can you imagine, man? Can you imagine, man? They done beat this guy, humiliated him,
right,
hung him up on the cross, and now somehow or another he gets the energy and the ability to come down.
That would have had a huge impact. However, that wasn't necessary. Well, they would believe he was going to die, but that would have had a huge impact. But see, the problem I have with all of the things, the stories, is no one talked about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you had 5,000 people, you mean to tell me nobody wrote about it?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody didn't draw no pictures on pottery, on the wall. We can go 5,000 years back to Egypt, and they got all kinds of stories on the wall.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And this story is saying all of this and that, but nobody wrote about it.
Oh, you know what I just thought about too, Roderick? You made me think about. I just got this thought, man, as you were talking. The military would have recorded it, and they would have tried to figure something out militarily on how to deal with the similar situation in the future or how to replicate it. That's, you know, in the US, well, in most countries, the military, their budget might be secret, but the military spends huge amounts of money on research. So if they see this guy come down off the cross, you mean to tell me they're not going to put some money behind that to figure out how he did it?
Right. Find out how he did it. You're right.
You look at a place like MIT, all of that money, most of it coming from the military, man, for technology research.
Right. So the fact that, to me, the fact that, you know, the people didn't talk about it. No one, no one made a big deal about it. To me, that's something to make a big deal about.
Mm-hmm.
No one did that. Why? Whether he was resurrected or whether he came down off the cross, no one did. No one talked about it. Of course, we got the book and scholars saying, "Oh, people saw him."
Mm-hmm.
But and another thing we have to remember, the people didn't recognize him when they did see him, according to the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had on a gardener's uniform.
Right. Well, that whole story, there are three stories.
Mm-hmm.
One story is she went out there and she said it took her 5 minutes. She ran back up the cycle. They ran down there. Two of them ran down there, and before church meeting, they said they believed her.
Mm-hmm.
They believed what? That somebody took her.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first story
Mm-hmm.
of the resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other story was Mary came by herself. She was crying, and the guardsman was talking to her, and she didn't recognize who he was until later. And I'm saying, okay, why didn't she recognize him?
Mm-hmm.
Why did he have on guard out?
Mm-hmm.
Did he not die? Then he told her, "Don't touch me, because I have not ascended. Go tell the brothers that I have a king." Okay, well, is he lying now? He feel like no lie? There's a lot of things in the story that just doesn't add up. To me, I don't know how you could make the resurrection more powerful if the fact that Lazarus was raised from the dead ain't nobody talking about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well,
We're going to talk about this Decipher.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me ask you this question. What's your take on death? I think it was you yesterday. You wrote death is final, or forever, or something like that. That was you, right?
Yeah.
So, what's your take on this thing about if the Christ figure is dead, and the Christ figure and the Father and the Holy Spirit are one, and they're dead? What's your take on them, or who resurrected the Christ, or who resurrected them, or how did that whole thing happen?
Right. I heard you yesterday, and I was like, that's a good point. If the Creator is dead, then who is greater than the Creator? So who raised the Creator from the dead? He's dead.
Yeah.
So that's an excellent point. My take on that is, well, my belief has always been this. They can't be the same person.
Mm-hmm.
It just can't be.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can have a J.C. character, and I believe people may have misused or abused his position, his purpose, and who he was. But you're not going to sit here and tell me they're the same person. Not when we have scriptures that says the heaven kingdom came the Most High.
Mm-hmm.
So now he can be in flesh, something he hates.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about
if he died?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
No. You go ahead.
I was gonna say, if he died and he is the Most High, then who raised him up?
Yep. That's the problem, right?
That is the problem.
That's the problem, especially with Trinity. If he died, who raised him up?
Yeah.
I think some of these religions said, okay, the Father is greater than the Son. They're separate people precisely because of this information right here. Because if he died, who raised him up? So they had to say, okay, in order for us to stay in business, we need to separate them, right? Christ figure is one person separate from the Father, but a lot of these, well, let me not say a lot, but I know one Hebrew Christian Hebrew Israelite Christian organization whose doctrine is that they're separate in body, but they're one in terms of purpose. So that's how they explain that away. That's how they explain it away.
I know we're not on the subject of him being one, but they're going to have to explain the scripture where he said, when he's praying to the Father and telling the Father, I pray that you make them one as you and I are one. So does that make the disciples God too? Does that make them capital G-O-D?
It's a good point. And you know what else?
They have to do what you're saying, what you're teaching, and that's the etymology of the word. Because if you look at the Greek word, I think the Greek word is the word heist. That word means on one accord or in agreement. So a lot of people are taking that whole thing out of context. So I'm going to get back to the question, and that is, which is more powerful. And it's kind of hard to say, because let's say he did come down on the cross. They would think probably maybe we didn't do enough damage to him. Maybe we didn't beat him up enough. So, maybe we didn't hurt him up enough. There would have been something. To explain that.
Hey, Roderick, you had to go back, man, tomorrow and listen to this video so you can see how funny you sound, man, when you said they didn't beat him up enough.
Hey, I don't know. And then, there's two things that concern me. Well, not concern me, but two things that I look at. One is, okay, Mary saw him, he was dressed in dark. Okay. Did these children do a switch up? Okay. Number two, Nicodemus, according to the story, came to the tomb that night with 100 pounds of myrrh. So I said, okay, well, what is myrrh used for? It's used for healing wounds. I'm like, did these children do a switcheroo? What really happened?
Right. You know, man, I think there is a Masonic story, a Masonic meaning somewhere in here with this whole story. It has to be some type of Masonic thing going on with this.
I believe the whole New Testament.
Yeah. But you know what else is interesting too? The author brought out a couple videos ago. He said that the only person who willingly gave up his life in the gospel was Judas Iscariot. He said the Christ figure did not willingly give up his life. And so therefore this whole Christian, the whole Christian doctrine that he gave up his life for, to save everybody is not true according to the author, because he was given the mission to do it. In other words, he didn't have a choice. Right. And I think the author brought out that when it came down to it, he asked the Father to take the cup from him. So that adds to the Christ figure never died at all. Right? Because he was trying to get out of it. Or it wasn't his choice because he was mandated to do it. He had to. So this is just a very, very interesting topic. And I hope that other people, whether they be assemblies, camps, organizations, what have you, or even churches, will pick this topic up. I hope people will pick this topic up and start to ask the questions. You know what I'm saying, Roderick? Start to.
Yes, they really do need to ask questions. Yeah.
No, continue. You say it. I rather they hear it from you.
Oh well, I decided. Now I grew up in the church, but all my life, been minister of music. I've had to deliver messages on Sunday morning, so I was strong in the church. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point, I began to question or ask questions. Just basically ask questions. And I think if you really are a true speaker, you have to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
You have to put aside any belief system that someone has put in you until you resolve your question. Because truth is, most people are in this thing because someone put them in at an early age. They didn't question that. They didn't ask any questions. Some people that put them in didn't ask the question. And so it has become a part of our culture that it has helped us to cope with the things that have been going on with us. But at the same time, I personally believe the sentence is designed to cause us to disobey the Most High. I really do believe that. And if you begin to ask questions and study without a preconceived idea, let the research, let the etymology, let the breakdown of the words lead you to the truth.
Mm-hmm.
I had to make up in my mind, wherever this leads me, I'm going to set aside, I'm going to put my religion on the shelf. I'll say that a lot. Put your religion on the shelf, go study. And then, if you feel like you need to take it off the shelf, put it back on, then do so. Most times you will find out you might not put that road back on.
Mm-hmm. What would your advice be to, let's say, a Hebrew Israelite or a Christian who, let's say this conversation we're having, they would look at this and or hear it, and they would be afraid because they would feel like they're going against the Christ figure, or they're listening to apostate information, or they're just afraid to question anything about the Christ, the resurrection, and the whole story. What would your advice be, or do you have any experiences in your life or people you know that you would, or advice that you are willing to share with people who that could help them emotionally deal with this issue?
I can only speak for myself, my experience. So for me, real quickly, I think I went through something in my life that prepared for this. What I went through in my life was growing up, people telling me that a particular man was my father. Okay? That's what I knew. When I turned 18, I realized that was not my father. And I learned from my real father. What that taught me was, just because you were taught, and just because everyone around you agrees with it and believes in it and says it, that doesn't make it true. I was put in a position where the truth had to come out. Sometimes we have to just go and search for the truth, but I was in a position where the truth had to come out. Saying that, say this, I think the Most High was preparing me for the disconnect from religion, because religion is a very strong drug. And sadly, I'm looking at people like movements, and a lot of them, all they did was move religion over into this Hebrew Israelite movement, but you're still doing church the way church do church. You just change the names, change colors, and of course, a lot of stuff is melanated people, but you're still doing church. You're still doing that same thing. You just change the message a little bit, and just like a psychological game that's used on people in religion, you're using a psychological game on people that are hurt. We have been hurt. And the Israelite movement, even though it opened a lot of eyes and it revealed a lot of things, they are still playing on people's hurt. And that hurt is the mistreatment of us through the years. So that's why that whole movement has grown so much. But you got to ask yourself this question. These guys, not all of them, some of these guys are on the corner, they saying all kinds of hateful things about people that don't look like them. And you have to ask yourself, why haven't the police stopped them, broke laws, prevent them from doing it? See, there's an agenda going on here.
Yeah.
Because how you gonna let these guys do that? You don't do nothing about it. Yeah. So I would advise you to do yourself.
Mm-hmm. Well, I saw.
We have to make it to the Most High ways you probably never saw. And all we have to do is trust and believe. Like the gentleman that was shit torn. Look within yourself.
I saw.
The peace of the Most High is inside of all of it.
That's right. That's right. That's right. I saw Professor Dr. James Small on I think it was on Black Magic YouTube channel, but he said that he's a Freemason and that his father is a Freemason. He was speaking very highly of Freemasonry, and he said that 99+% of all pastors, in the Black Christian church, are Freemasons.
I can believe that.
That's what he said.
I'm a sound engineer, and I have churches that, I'm not gonna call anybody name out, but I have churches in the local areas that hire me to come in and repair or troubleshoot their sound for you to put them in. And yet, you're right, there are a lot of pastors that are under the Masonic order. I'm like, why?
Right, and so maybe that might.
How can you be on both sides of the fence?
Right, and maybe that might have something to do with why they're able to do a lot of what they do.
Yeah.
And get away with it. I don't know. I'm just guessing, but.
Oh, I'm like you. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I will cut.
That's the first time I ever heard that one. Yeah, it's got to be something, man. It's got to be something. But according to Dr. James Small, he says that, he gave them a very good, but I don't know anything about Freemasonry. I only know what I hear. But it does look very suspicious that these camp leaders are Freemasons. But I don't know. I'm only guessing. I don't have a clue. But
well, think about this, Doctor. It's not the Most High said that there's some way to cook up in our captivity, in the land of our captivity.
Yeah.
Well, knowing that, if I was devil, I would be prepared for that. I would demonstrate every organization that I think might be an organization to wake up. I truly believe some of these camps have been infiltrated. This is the reason why the police cannot touch them.
Yeah. And I know for one thing, man, I agree with you 150% that the New Testament takes us away from following the Most High's instructions. But I take it one step further, it's genocidal on our people. So why are these Hebrew Israelite organizations who've been around for decades still pushing it? They have to know.
Because I think personally, just like they did with the civil rights movement, the alphabet companies that are part of the GOP put people in place to spy and to direct people in this way. It wouldn't surprise me if the leaders would not surprise me if these people are tied in to the alphabet company.
Yep. I wouldn't be surprised, especially, I was shocked when I heard some Hebrew Israelites recommending people to take the experimental therapy thing, if you know what I mean.
Really?
Yeah. It's a very prominent one was telling people to do it.
Wow.
I was shocked.
Wow. Well, I don't want to get your channel. I don't want to get your channel shot down. shut down, so we gonna leave that topic alone. But yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, but that's what we up against, man. That's what we are up against, and I hope everybody will at least take the time to learn about astrotheology. Scholars in the audience,
yeah,
take the time to learn, educate yourself, learn etymology, learn all of the sciences that the author of this book, The Devil's Pulpit, has been presenting and demonstrating how to use it so that you can learn how to use it too. And then you can make an educated decision on whether or not you're going to continue with the Gospels, right? Or you can get a better understanding of what you already believe, okay? So it doesn't hurt you, scholars in the audience. It doesn't take anything away, but it adds to you to learn this information. So take the time, continue coming back for each of these presentations and learn this information so that you can do whatever you're going to do it in knowledge, not doctrine, but knowledge, science. Anything else you want to say?
Can I drop something? Yeah, let me say this. Because anybody that's listening to this, and I pose this question and no one can answer. When, let's say the JC character is a real character, okay? When he told the disciples, go around and tell the good news, what was the good news? Because there was no Mark, there was no John, there was no Luke, there was no Matthew, and there was no Paul. None of this stuff was written at the time he told these people to go and spread the news. So what was the good news? That's something to think about.
Yeah. You have any advice or recommendations in terms of study, self-discipline, anything like that for those people, new or old, how they can return to the Most High and do it as efficiently and, and as peacefully and with as much joy as possible?
I would say enjoy the adventure, but seek after the Most High. Seek after the truth. You can't go wrong when you get after the truth. And since they use word, I call it word magic and word wizardry, since they use that to not only mess with us, but the entire world, you got to go back to linguistic and worship. You have to. That's what the key, that's what the answer is. For instance, virgin doesn't mean what it means today back at this time. There were women in the Bible that were virgins, but they already had kids. So how is that possible? So we have to go and study the word. How can you, it's like the word Jew, Judah, all these words start with J. We know the J was created in 1500. So what was the original word? What was the original word? Get back to the original word. And the only way to do that is through studying the word and etymology.
So how does a person...
the Most High did say, okay, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead. I'll wait till you're done.
I was going to say, the Most High did say he's going to restore to us a pure language. So that's what we need to be focused on.
Okay, so how do you recommend for people just coming in or they've been in for a long time, how do you recommend they manage their time so that they can do these things? Let's say they have a job, or let's say their life is a mess for whatever reason. You have any recommendations that you can offer people so that they can get their life, get some,
Okay, I'm at work right now.
Oh, okay.
But what am I doing? I'm listening and learning. Okay. You're gonna have to pray to the Most High to lead you to people that's gonna lead you to the truth. And I don't discount everybody, even if I don't believe in what they're Because sometimes 30 minutes in, you'll get 1 or 2 gold nuggets. And that's all you can. The rest of that you can throw away. But that one or two little gold nuggets, you got 30 minutes into somebody's teaching or whatever, is all you needed to move to the next level, to the next step. So PDFs can be read while you're working. They have apps you can download that will actually read the PDF out to you while you're working. Of course, you can't work and be reading. So the time is a problem. When you're in your car, you can read these PDFs. When you're at work, you can read these PDFs. When you're cleaning the house, you can listen to things. You just have to make time. But I think it comes with a burning desire to know what's really going on, and a burning desire to know the truth. If you don't have that, it's going to be very difficult. So I would say start with that, because we make time for the things we love.
That's right.
I don't care what it is. We'll make time for the things that we love. So fall in love with the truth. Fall in love with the Most High. Let the Most High know that we want to connect with Him. Now, all these people have been saying this, that, and the other, and they've been leading us astray. I can't really connect to you.
Oh, Roger, man, you just brought up a good point, man. What are your recommendations for people who got out of Christianity, man? They came into Hebrew Israelite through one of those entry organizations, or even, they just came in one of those, and they had a really horrible experience, and now they don't know what to do. They're feeling terrible. They're basically lost, hurt, damaged. What's your recommendation for that person to, rather than abandon their heritage, but do you have any advice on how to move past that and forward, healthy?
Take some time. Yeah, take some time and just listen. Talk to the Most High and listen. Maybe you have to turn off the thing and just listen. He's waiting on us to reach out to Him. If there's nothing that excites the Most High more than His creation, to be a part of His creation, reaching out. The trees, every day they're reaching out. They're raising their arms and they reach out. Everything in nature is glorifying the Most High by doing what they were supposed to do. If you have been in this spirit, you've been hurt, because I've been there. I just recently broke away. The Most High told me in 2020, I need you to stop. In 2020, when we was in Jamaica, burying my father-in-law, I said, okay, I don't know how I'm going to do this. This man relies on me to do a whole lot of things. I mean, you name it, I'm the one doing it. And so, the pandemic. So, okay. So during that time, Most High was still dealing with me. And just dealing with me and preparing me. And then finally, this is how I broke away from a situation that I know I needed to get away from. I told this individual I don't believe in the virgin birth. And from that, he said, well, I don't know if you can still be in leadership position. I said, I understand. I totally understand how to walk together and let's agree. I gave him it out. Because really it was my out. If you are hurt and you're dealing and you're going through, spend some time being spend some time talking to the Most High. You will be surprised. Right now, this time, today and age, you'll be surprised how quickly the Most High will give you an answer. And don't turn down information, because the Most High may give it to a source that you would have never thought of changing. It could be a bomb on the street. It could be a child. It could be your enemy. It could be somebody teaching stuff you're trying to get away from. Maybe you might say something. The Most High may say something to that person, and it may open up your eyes. Y'all got excited one day about learning the truth, and I've been running it since. So if you hurt, don't give up. Don't give up. Don't quit. Because what's happening, psychologically, what's happening is if you take something from somebody psychologically, you gotta feel it for something else to feel the void. Well, let the Most High be full. Let His word be your void. Everybody's been telling us, teaching us the law is done away with, Mosaic law is gone, and commandments are gone. Go back to that. It's not hard. I don't know if the church try to make it hard. It's not hard. Go back to that. And while you're going back to that, ask Him to speak to you. He wants to speak to you. He wants to have fellowship. Even in your pain and in your hurt. He wants to talk. He wants to show you that He has a plan. He has not forgotten about His people. He has not forgotten about our situation. And redemption is coming.
Okay. All right. Well, I do want to say thank you for sharing that with us. And, all of that wisdom and knowledge, man, I really, really appreciate it. And I'm sure that the scholars in the audience, if you apply everything that these brothers who have come on with their wisdom, willing to share with y'all, and I don't think anybody held anything back in terms of sharing. But if you will accept it and work with it, I'm sure it's going to improve your life. So be willing to do that. Even if you disagree, at least give it some thought. These men are experienced in life and they know what they're talking about. So there is value in it. Just find out how you can use it for yourself. So thanks so much. Really appreciate you sharing all of this with us.
Thank you for the book. Get the book. Get that Rescue 911 book. That's a great start.
Yeah.
And doing the class, right?
Right.
Doing the class.
Right. Thank you.
What is Ibaryath? I'm doing those. So join.
Yeah.
Join.
That class is 506, the Curses course on Saturday, 10 a.m. in the morning, Eastern Standard Time. The links are in the chat. The streaming course is 101 Ancient Ibaryath. That's almost free, right? So y'all definitely jump on that. Yeah, definitely. Scholars in the audience. These are jewels. Everything you see the author doing, how he's able to massage these words and create a beautiful piece of art as he explains it. You'll learn these same skills with that 101 Ancient Ibaryath course and with the 506 course. The links are in the chat, but the only way you'll know it's true is if you go ahead and jump on it. You'll be able to create art by deciphering or examining, breaking down words into their etymological meaning, their morphology, meaning how the word is constructed, the infix, suffix, the prefix, the root, part of speech, all of this stuff. You're going to learn all of that. So this will make you into a very, very, let me rephrase that. It won't make you into, it will help you to express your power. It will help you express your power because it's going to get you out of this connotative linguistics vocabulary and way of expressing yourself, which hinders your ability to reason. And you don't know that because all you know is connotative linguistics right now. Am I right, Roger's point of view? Y'all don't know it. Yeah, because y'all in connotative linguistics. But the way the author is handling this material, he's taking, in my opinion now, right, I would have never said this years ago, he's taking an ugly story and making it into something beautiful as he unveils it through linguistics and history. All right, so I think that's all I have to say on that topic. Let me see what's happening. I don't know what's happening in the chat. I don't know We've been going for a while. Let me see. I'm using Zoom, man, and it's kind of tricky for me. So let's see if we can go through. Let me see. Let me go through some of these comments, scholars. So here we have. Okay, so here we have King Michael says there's no way then or now for a person to prove that they are the child of capital God. Darrell-El says myth means a story that has truth, but has with embellishments. That everybody should keep that in mind. Gary Tucker writes, JC, the Christ figure, told Judas, quote, step away from the others, and I shall tell you the mysteries of the kingdom. It is possible for you to reach it, but you will grieve a great deal. Nice. All right, good. Let's see. Vincent Brown says, few fully understand Christianity. Ain't that the truth? Darrell-El writes, just because I don't believe it doesn't mean it is not true, which means I may not be educated enough in the topic to make a reasoned opinion. That's a good point. Everybody should keep that in mind. Brandon Darrell, shalawama to you and your family. King Michael writes, I don't know how the swap was made, but it was a swap to preserve his bloodline, which we know today as the Holy Grail. All right, that's interesting. That's an interesting point. Gary Tucker writes, the pioneers of the Hebrew Israelites were Freemasons. Frank Cherry, William Crowdy, and William Christian. Thanks for that information. You know what would be interesting, Roderick's point of view? To do a presentation on who Frank Cherry is, William Crowdy, and William Christian, but to do it in an honest, historical way, right? But also present their personalities. But no religion, just an honest type of story of who they are. I'm gonna look into that, see what I can find. Darrell-El writes.
I was gonna say that we know that they've done a lot of lying, changing names of geographical locations, seas, land masses, people. But I also believe the things that were ours, they turned it into evil. I also believe they told us to keep us away from it. But we have to go back to what was going on in the Babylonian time. And I love the study you did about the deity of Babylon and the hook and the foot. That was the revelation to me. I'm like, oh boy, I gotta really go study that. That is crazy. So we do need to study that stuff. We have to study that stuff. Just to help us to the level he is, But yeah, we need to do a class on what you just spoke about.
Okay, excellent. All right. Darrell-El writes, you can only save yourself. You can't save big mama, son, or daughter, but you can attract many by your righteous behavior. Hey, our people really need to do that, right? Focus on their own behavior. This walk is about loyalty, not love. Love is desires. Nice points. I was talking with somebody today about this, people worried about fringes, head covering, fez, what kind of clothes what about the person who you are and your behavior? How about let's start right there. Forget about when the Sabbath and all of these external things. How about let's start with you becoming a person who is trustworthy, who is faithful, who is loyal, who someone else feels comfortable being with and trusting. You know, be the person you want to be, instead of worrying about how somebody else is dressed or when the Sabbath is. You know, the older I get, man, the more frustrated I get when I see this kind of behavior. King Michael writes, once we're done reading this book, would you be willing to do the same thing for the Bible reading?
Oh, boy.
King Michael, what I want to do, I want to translate the Torah, the first 5, into Ibaryath. And I want to not just translate the Ibaryath because that's easy. What's hard is to translate, put the English meaning. So you have on the top line, you have the English meaning, the Ibaryath, right? You have the verse in Ibaryath. And then underneath each Ibaryath word, you have the English word, okay? And then underneath that, you have the part of speech. My goal, in fact, I'm putting together a GoFundMe. What I want to do is provide that, because that does not exist right now. That does not exist.
That's a lot of work.
Yes, a lot of work, man. That's a lot of work. But that's what, you know, that's what my calling is.
We need it, though.
Yeah, we need it. We need it because what's in that Ibaryath, man, it's different from what's in the English. So, but you know, I don't know how I'm gonna pull it off. So I'm gonna put a GoFundMe together if people want to support it, and if I can get the people backing me on the project, then I'm gonna do it. But the one thing I don't want to do is tell people I'm gonna do it, and I don't have the financing prepared to do it.
You don't have the financing.
You know, but so King Michael, that's what I want to do. And if I can get some traction with that project, then we can do some really, really great things, even in terms of production. Maybe I can do classes demonstrating the production, going through Ibaryath, going through English, going through the grammar, showing how the verse or the sentence is constructed, showing the difference between the English and the Ibaryath, and then having a discussion. Man, we can discuss one word for 3-4 hours, believe it or not. So, yeah, King Michael, you're thinking on the right line, bro. Darrell-El writes, etymology example, hell, lo is held, H-E-L-L, and then lo, L-O-W. I have taken that word out of my vocabulary use. Yeah, that's a good thing too. All right, y'all, so we reached our 1 hour and 30-minute goal, not to go beyond that. I want to say thank you to everyone. Go ahead. Did you have something?
No, I'm okay. I'm gonna put myself on mute.
Okay. All right. I want to say thank you for everyone for joining us, spending your time with us. It's very nice to have you with us. We appreciate you being with us very much. And for those who called in, a sincere thank you for participating, adding to this presentation to make it something really, really educational, more than what I could have done by myself. So I acknowledge you all for that. So thank you very much for sharing what you know. And I know that knowledge you got was expensive, not only with money, but with the time, effort, and energy that it took you to learn it. And then the time you spent away from your family in the process of learning it. So I, for one thing, know that knowledge is not cheap. and it has a lot of value. So I want to say thank you very, very much for doing this for me, and also for everybody, all the scholars in the audience. So with that, I'm going to say Shalawama, and we will see you tomorrow. Here's the schedule. All times are Eastern Standard Time. We're going to start back on page 2, I think it's 212 or 213. All times are Eastern Standard Time, Sunday 2 p.m., Monday 9 p.m., Tuesday 10 p.m., Wednesday 10 p.m., Thursday 10 p.m., Friday 9 p.m., and Saturday 8 p.m. All times are Eastern Standard Time. So thank you all very much. Shalawama and Islam to the Moors. We'll see.